back to askNK. Today we're looking at Spline. Spline is an amazing tool for those who like to create motion graphic style 3D models, and this is quite an interesting tool to have. Now, for those who like to take a look at this, you can simply go over to the link in the description where you can check this out, as Spline is available as a web app, a desktop app for both Windows, Mac, and also Linux. And today we're going to explore the brand new update that is now available with Spline, owing to the fact that since the last time we talked about Spline, there has been a couple of iterations, and this is now looking even way better. And with that said, let's get right into it. Spline opened right here, you would notice that it looks extremely simple. This is a simple to use tool as it also allows for collaboration. Starting off, you would notice that we have a couple of demonstration files which you can open and work with, and to open any one is by simply double clicking, and that would simply launch you in. And once that opens up, you would notice that we have ourselves a very cool model that we can look at. Now, how you navigate across this is as simple as holding down Alt on the keyboard, and with your left mouse button you can orbit, Alt on the keyboard, with your middle mouse button you can pan, and if you roll your middle mouse in and out, you would definitely be able to zoom in and zoom out. It is also worth knowing that you have two different kinds of 3D space. You have the perspective and also the orthographic. And depending on which of them that actually suits your need, you can switch to them. Right above here, you would notice that we also have a small widget that you can use as your view cube. So with this, you can simply look at your model from different points, and this is definitely interesting to have. Now, within the UI, you would notice we have three major panels. The very first one right on the top is your toolbar, and from here you can create stuff. And you would also notice right on the left hand side, you have your outliner. So your outliner actually shows you all the things that you have. And right here is your property bar where you can make some changes. Now, with this said, for those who like to create theirs, you can actually create yours in two ways. First off, you can click on the plus sign to create yours, or you can simply click on your username that you used in registering and go right here and click on new file to start creating a brand new project. So the very first thing which you notice is this looks extremely simple. Now, before we talk about the new file, there are two types of mesh primitives that you have here, or should I say there are two types of meshes that you have here. The very first one is the spline, which is more like dealing with curves, and then you have the primitive, which is the original primitive. So if you have something as simple as the rectangle, of course you can see them here, the rectangle, we have the ellipse tool, we have the text tool, all of these are curves. So if you have them selected and then you click on this button, you can start adding points. Now, you probably wouldn't be able to add points now because once you have this selected, you need to click on edit. Now, if you click on edit, you can now start creating curves, and these curves can actually act as profile curves for what you're making. So the very first one which we would do here, or the very first thing which we'll do here, is to select point. So if we select a point like this, we can move this point to a given section, and we can use the pen tool to add 1 point here, 1 point here, and we can flip back and position this where we want. The snapping option will be very nice in subsequent updates. So, just in case the folks at Spline are looking at this, that would be something I believe lots of users will love. So once we have this going, if you would like to bend, you can simply use the bend tool, and with the bend tool, you can add curves. So this way you can now simply change this from a linear to a spline curve, and that would be very nice. Now, regardless of this, if you also have your object selected, you can use the parametric gizmo to move things. Now, the parametric gizmo in itself is a very nice tool because in this case, you can choose to rotate if you want, scale if you want, and you can translate at the same time. So with something like this, if you're thinking about adding extrusions, you can have the object selected and you can add extrusions. If you're also thinking about adding some subdivisions, some stuff like that, you can do that. If you'd also love to add some beveling to this, you can of course go ahead and add some bevels, and this looks really nice. You can also put some, side bevels, and we can roll in some corners, and you can see this is looking pretty much softer than we thought earlier. Now, one thing you would also notice is the shading doesn't look so cool because we have the lighting set to none. So if you like to set this properly, you can go over to the lighting section, and from here is where you can make changes. This lighting currently is set to none, and if you click on the drop down, you can set this to either Lambert, Fong, Physical, or you can set this to tone shading. So depending on what you want, you have all of this, and you can start doing some very interesting things. Now, in most cases, the Lambert will suggest that you select the color, but if you like to do the color thing separately, you can go over to the color section, and right here is more like your color slot, and you can add a color. If you like to add another color, you can click on the plus sign to add another color, and this just simply goes on and on. And you can also go over and start making some changes to this, but this is just the spline tool. Now, if you would like to work on meshes and you would like to work on primitive meshes, you can simply click on the cube and you can click and drag and simply position this wherever you want. Of course, if you're also thinking about working with the sphere, you can also do that as well. Now, one thing to also mention before we move further is there is a library. So right here, there is a library, and this library contains lots of assets that you might want to use. So if you're looking for things like body parts, bags, you're looking for some cool stuff, you'll be able to find them here. So maybe with like a low poly cloud, a low poly sun, low poly moon and stuff, you can find them there. If you're also looking for scenes that you can use as both inspirations or some sort of color idea scenes, you might also want to study these ones and pick them up from here. As double clicking this will simply download them and you can see more stuff with it. How you can make your own models is very interesting. Now, this tool offers a set of editing tools and also a sculpting set of tools that you can work with. So say, for example, we're trying to create something like a cup or maybe like a low poly shoe. We can go ahead with the object selected, with the primitive object selected, obviously. We can go over to the section where we have the smooth and edit and click. Now, if we click on the smooth and edit, you would notice that we have the three major components tools that we work with: the faces, the edges, and also the vertex. And you can simply switch from this by going over to faces by pressing F, G, and also the V key. So if we would like to extrude parts, we can. So I can go ahead, click on the section and click on extrude and extrude this tool if we like that. So if you click on this button, you can extrude that all the way out. And we can also go ahead and click right here and extrude this all the way to the top. So that is looking pretty nice. Now, if you like to also insert stuff, you can. So if we click on the insert button, click on this, we can insert, and we can also extrude all the way down as well. Now, for those who are also thinking about exploring with the edge tool, the edge tool is also available, but there are only a few set of tools like I mentioned earlier. I haven't found the extrude and also the insert to work, but I've found the loop cut and also the sliding to work very well. So we can click and make some loop cutting, and I can drag that all the way down to a position like so. We can also add one right there, and we can add one right about the point like so, and one right about the point like here as well. So we can also have that there. Let's scale this just about a tiny point. Looking nice. Okay, so we can also add one around the position like this. Let's drag that a little bit lower. And this way we are making some low poly stuff. And this is fun. This is very interesting to see. So once you're done working on your masterpiece, in this case, what you can do is you can choose to switch over to the sculpting tools and make some sculpt. Say, for example, you like to use the grab tool to move some parts down, and maybe you like to move some parts lower like this as well. Yes, you can. You can also play with the other sculpting tools that exist here. And once you're ready, you can click on close to come back to your edit mode. Now, once you're done with the edit mode, if you like to add some more subdivision, you can. And once you're finished and you're ready, you can click on the close button to come back right over to your object mode. So with a tool like this, you can start making stuff super, super easy. And in terms of making Booleans, you can, of course, go ahead and click and drag, and you can start making Booleans with this. So say if you like to make a Boolean of several parts, so we can also click and drag. Let's say we like to make a Boolean. In this case, what we can do is we can have this object selected. I can drag this all the way to a point like so. Now we can also make copies of this. So I'm just going to go ahead and right click and make a duplicate copy, drag that duplicate copy all the way to the base. So we can have the very first one, click, make a Boolean, one. Okay, so I think click, make a Boolean. So we have that. And we can position this as well. Click, make another Boolean too. Now, the beautiful thing about the Boolean system here is you can always, go back and make changes. So it's a very interesting one to have. And once you're ready, you can click on apply and edit and have the final result. So I can go ahead and move this to position. Nice. Now, if you're also thinking about making clones, clones is also something that is very, very cool and very easy to make with this. So if you click and drag and make something as simple as a sphere, I have no idea if we made a perfect sphere, but let's see. All right, so if you click and drag and make something that looks like a sphere, like so, and you would like to make clones, let's say we would like to make very tiny clones across this, you can. So you can simply scroll all the way down, go over to the cloner section, click, and then you can click on radial, actually set to radial, and you can make a huge clone. You can flip the axis if you want. You can also spread this out based on the radius. And in terms of positioning, you can position this exactly where you want it to be. So this is looking awesome already. Now, the other parts which you might definitely find a little bit interesting to see is this, that you might be asking, what is this tiny stuff that we have here? This is the lighting tool that exists with this software. So to add the background colors, let's actually position these properly first. Let's get that and position these. Yeah. So if you would like to add the background colors, you can just simply click out, make sure you have nothing clicked, click on the background, and we can find a color. So I could just go for color like this. Let's get something a bit more brighter. Actually, we should go towards this section. Which of the sections look nice? All right, a bright section like this look pretty nice. We can of course go ahead and give these individual objects colors. And once you're done giving them the colors that you want, you might want to also explore the post-processing. So in this case, let's just move these over to this position. If you like to make copies, of course you can. So you can go through, right-click the object, make a duplicate, and now we have two lights. Actually, I ended up deleting that. So make a duplicate, and then we have two lights, and we can use these lights to sort of change how the lighting would be. Now, if you go over to the lighting section, you can also notice that you have a couple of properties here which you can use to play with the intensity and all that stuff. But then what we would like to look at, let's turn this off. What we would like to look at is the post-processing. So if you just simply click out, make sure you're not clicking anything, go over to the post-processing, turn it on, and you find out that you have some very fun stuff. You have the first one, which is the vignette. Turn this on and off, explore that. If you like to also explore the hue, you can explore the hue. This is also great. And if you want to change the values just between where you have the cog and where you have the numbers, you can click and drag, and that can help you change the values. Let's turn that up. If you like to have some bloom, you can also have some bloom. Some chromatic aberration, you can also have that as well. Now, all of these are designed to actually help you style your scene exactly how you want. So in other cases, you might want to turn on things like the fog. So the fog is also a very nice one, and you can push the fog how much you want. So you can make it a bit closer, a bit backwards if you want. And these are just some very interesting things that exist with tools like this. Let's also go back and make changes to this particular one. Maybe make it a bit greenish. I think that might be great. Okay, so let's make that a bit greenish. And for those who are wondering how we did this particular texture, if you click right here, instead of selecting gradient, which is definitely going to give you that, you can click and select depth. Now within the depth section, if you click, you can switch from linear, which is the linear one, to the smooth one, and you can make changes with that, or you can simply go from the radial to the linear one. Now the cool thing with this is you have an interactive set of tools that you can use to play with the gradient directly on your viewport, and this is great. It's great in several sense, as you can pick out any of these ones and move them, and it gives you that CorelDRAW style kind of thing when you're making all of these design decisions right within your viewport. So if you've been thinking about something that can just help you create stuff like this, then you might want to consider taking a look at this one. So this works and it looks extremely nice. Now for those who are thinking about exporting this, you want to use it in other apps, you can simply click on the export button and you can export this as GLTF, which you can bring into Blender or maybe 3D Studio Max or any DCC app of choice. And of course, if you've been wondering about how can I use this and make some very engaging content for the web, you can also do that. So in this case, let's say if we'll have this object selected and we would like to have a state, what you have to do is have this object selected, go over to the state, click, And there you have a state. So there's a base state and there is states. And within the state, you can add different events. Now with this state, I can go over here and change the color to something like this. So let's just make this fully red, something like that. And I'm just going to press the Enter key to store that. And the next thing which we can do is go over to the event and we can set up a trigger event. Now within the triggering event, we might want this to just happen on the start, or we might want this to happen once the mouse hovers across. Now let's test out this. If you press the playback button, you notice that this starts automatically. Now, if we also press the playback button one more time and hover around here, you see nothing happens, right? But then if we would like the states to sort of repeat over and over every time our mouse hovers, we can add a new event. So you can just add tons of triggering events and stuff like that. And this makes sense. So we can go right there and look for mouse hover. Okay, so once the mouse hovers, we want it to repeat. And what do we want it to repeat? State 1. Okay, and if we press the playback button, it happens, mouse hovers, comes out, it happens, and you see it starts happening over and over and over. If we like to have a cycling effect, of course we can turn on that cycle, turn this off, and let's say no. All right, oh, let's put a rewind, that would be cool. And by all means, if you like to set this every and any way, you can. If you're also thinking about just adding new object events, you can also add new object events, and that is also something that you can now use for the web. So it's a very interesting tool to work with, and it is quite lovely. So for those who like to explore this, I mean, for the sole purpose of using this and exporting it to DCC apps, of course you can. There are certain touch settings that you might want, and if you're thinking about just creating very lovely stuff that you might want to export to Blender like we mentioned earlier, by all means take a look at this tool and check it out for yourself. Tell me what you guys think about this one in the comment section, and of course if you like this video or you learned something from this, you can go ahead and give a like and don't forget to share with a friend. And until I see you guys in the next one, peace.